guys, in this video I thought I would give my top 5 best films of the year so far. I don't typically do a midway best of the year video. I usually just wait till the end of the year and do like my top 10 list then, because I figured what's the point in doing one at the halfway point when a lot of those films I'm going to be talking about again anyway at the end of the year. But I wanted to do another video and I haven't seen any new releases recently, so I thought, you know what, why don't I do a top 5 best of the year. I also haven't seen that many films so far this year. There's a lot of films I really want to see that I still need to catch up on. So 28 years later, The Bone Temple. I did see the first one, but The Bone Temple I still have not seen yet. The Furious, I've also heard great things about that. I'm dying to see that. It looks really great. Ever since I saw the poster for that, I thought, that looks cool, I want to watch that. But I still have yet to catch up on that. Also, Backrooms and Obsession, the two horror breakout hits this year. I still need to catch up on those two. Death of Robin Hood also is a film that I really want to see, but that doesn't get released here in the UK till September. So there are a lot of notable, great films that have come out so far this year that I haven't seen yet, but I still thought I would do this video anyway, just to talk about some of the films I have seen so far this year that I did really like. So with all that out of the way, let's get this started. And at number 5, I've got Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Not everybody loved this film, but it was really my kind of thing. I love kind of like really weird, idiosyncratic films like this. Gore Verbinski, I don't know if he's like one of the best directors working today, but I do love what he does when it comes to making his films. I love what he did with the original Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. I unashamedly love all 3 of those original Pirates of the Caribbean films. I love what he kind of brings to his movies. He doesn't try to be like anybody else. And with Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, he was returning to more of his indie roots, trying to do something smaller and less kind of like of a kind of big bloated blockbuster, because obviously it didn't work out so well with Cure for Wellness. He kind of been in director jail for 10 years, but Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die was like, I felt the kind of thing that he should be doing. And it might not have been absolutely amazing, but I really did like what he was going for. It was kind of like a Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but more of like a kind of indie art house kind of version, kind of, in a way. I mean, it wasn't as weird and kind of indie and idiosyncratic as I think it was trying to be, as I think it thought it was. It wasn't as much like, I say, Everything Everywhere All at Once as I think it kind of wanted to be, but I still really enjoyed it. Sam Rockwell in the lead role was absolutely amazing. I think he's one of the best and most underrated actors working today. It's weird to say that about a guy who's kind of been nominated and maybe even won an Oscar, but I feel like nobody really talks about him in the conversation of best actors working today, and he really is just great in everything he's in, and he really carries this movie. I don't know if it would have been as good as it was if it wasn't him in the lead role. He really kind of carries this movie on his shoulders, and I don't think it would have been anywhere near as watchable if it wasn't for him in that lead role. So yeah, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die may not have been everybody's cup of tea, but I personally really enjoyed it. So there it is at my number 5 spot. At number 4, there's a film that came out not too long ago, and that is Toy Story 5. I'm a big fan of the Toy Story franchise. I mean, who isn't? Been going for over 30 years now, which is kind of crazy to think. Toy Story 3, I think, is still the pinnacle of the franchise. That's really when it hit its absolute heights. I don't think Toy Story 4 was as good, although I still loved Toy Story 4. And Toy Story 5, again, continues the tradition of the Toy Story films just being really great. A lot of the times when franchises get to this kind of number, the installment, they kind of aren't as good anymore, or they're just churning them out just for the sake of it to make money. But with the Toy Story films, you can tell the guys at Pixar, they really take their time to make the best film they can possibly make. They don't just rush them out. We get, massive amounts of time between these installments. I think there was like 11-year gap between 2 and 3. There was like a several year gap between 3 and 4, and again between 4 and 5. And you can tell they waited until they had the best idea they had. So it was more about like kids being like addicted to screens and devices, and I feel like that was a really good conceit. Surprisingly, they didn't actually do that in the last film, actually. Just showing how kids aren't really into toys anymore. They're more into like iPads and tablets and devices, and the toys are being neglected. And also I really enjoyed the focus on Jessie and her being the protagonist of this film, because obviously we were introduced to her back in Toy Story 2 in 1999, and this film really took me back to my childhood, not just because of the the themes, the film was about, and how it was kind of focusing on the Jessie character who was introduced to us in Toy Story 2, and more about her not feeling like she's good enough, her feeling kind of inadequate, like is she just useless as a toy, and it kind of really got to me. And also the kind of harkening back to Toy Story 2, which came out when I was really young, one of the first films I saw, maybe even the first film I saw at cinema, I'm not sure, and it kind of really got to me. I found it really quite emotional. The Toy Story films are like Pixar's gem in their catalogue, and they're always the films that really do tug at your heartstrings, so I don't know why I was caught off guard and surprised so much. I can't believe I found myself in my 30s watching a Toy Story film, getting emotional, thinking about my childhood, but just goes to show how good they are, Pixar, and making these films, and I feel like they just really knocked it out of the park once again. And at number 3, it's going to have to be Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. This is another film that kind of divided people. I kind of don't really understand it because, as far as I'm concerned, Spielberg is the GOAT, and like everything he puts out is just great. I know there's the argument that, he's not been as good, in the 21st century as he was in like the 70s and 80s, for example. And obviously his best films did come out then, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, what have you, Jaws. But maybe this is a hot take, but I feel like everything he's put out the last 25 years has pretty much been great. Okay, maybe they're not as reaching those heights of, a Raiders of the Lost Ark and a Jaws and a Jurassic Park, but I still think Spielberg is one of the best, if not the best director working today. He is the GOAT, and Disclosure Day, for me, really worked. I don't think it's one of his best films, but I just feel like Spielberg is the kind of director where no matter what he does, it's just great. Okay, maybe the schmaltzy kind of, sentimentality kind of thing doesn't work for everyone, but I feel like undoubtedly he is the best there is when it comes to moving the camera. I feel like he can just be shooting kind of any kind of like mundane scene, and it's kind of riveting to watch because he's just the best there is when it comes to moving the camera, when it comes to blocking a scene, when it comes to like where he positions the actors, what he decides to do with the camera. So you can be watching a scene that in any other film probably would be shot in a really kind of flat, boring, uninteresting way, and it would be just a really unengaging scene, not very compelling to watch at all. But in a Spielberg film, just the way he decides to move the camera, it's not just locked down all the time. It's not just, mid-shot. He decides to keep the camera moving. And I feel like this film had a real sense of fluidity. It was just paced really well. It was just really moved. It was just constantly moving. And that's because the kind of camera was almost always constantly moving. Like the scene with Josh O'Connor in the farmhouse that leads into the car chase scene. And just the way he just decides to just keep the camera moving. I just feel like nobody else does it like Spielberg. And okay, maybe you could say that his films nowadays aren't as great as they used to be. And maybe the kind of, schmaltzy kind of like, empathy is the key kind of thing maybe doesn't work for everyone. It really worked for me. It really got to me. And I thought this was just a really great film. Coming in at number 2 spot on my list, and it was hard deciding between this and the number 1 film for which should take the top spot. And I did really love this film, but just missed out on the top spot on my list, and that is Project Hail Mary, the film based on the book by Andy Weir. Obviously, we got The Martian back in 2015, directed by Ridley Scott, and that was great. Loved that film. And this I probably liked even more. Ryan Gosling in the lead role there as Ryan Grace. Obviously, everybody's seen this movie. It was a big hit. Everybody loved it. But yeah, it just really worked for me. I loved how it was just also very funny. I feel like, it didn't take itself too seriously on one hand, but it was also a really great kind of just rollicking, just sci-fi adventure romp that really felt like something that would come out back in the 80s, like an E.T. or something. But it was also just, such a good, fun time at the movies. Ryan Gosling's always great in the lead role. I feel like he was perfectly cast in this as Ryan and Grace, and just the dynamic between him and Rocky. And you'd think going into this film, how is a dynamic between, a guy and a rock puppet going to work? Is that going to work? But it just worked so well. I feel like tonally they really knocked it out of the park. The direction by Lord and Miller, who I guess coming out of director jail after what they tried to do with Solo, which they were removed from that film infamously. Obviously they worked, behind the scenes getting the Spider-Verse films to us, and those were obviously amazing, but they didn't necessarily direct those movies. But I'm just kind of pissed watching this film that they've not actually directed a film since what, like the Jump Street films, or Lego Movie was the last film they directed, I'm not sure, but this was just so good. I'm like, I want Lord and Miller directing live action films again, because they just really knocked it out of the park with this. Maybe they'll be coming back to direct the other Andy Weir adaptation, I'm not sure, but yeah, Project Hail Mary, just like everybody else, really worked for me, and I love this film. And finally, coming in at the top spot on my list is a smaller indie film that probably not a lot of people have heard of. I'm not sure if it's even got a US release, maybe, I'm not too sure, but that is Mark Jenkins' Rosa Nevada. And this was just really my kind of film. I really, really loved it. It really worked for me. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. It's probably going to be an acquired taste. I could see just a regular moviegoer watching this and thinking, what the hell is this? And not really being able to get into it. But I feel like if you like smaller, weirder, more abstract, surreal kind of indie films, you're going to really love this. Mark Jenkins, the Cornish filmmaker, he previously did Bates back in 2019, which was one of my favourite films of that year. I didn't love that film as much as I love this, but it was still really interesting. I think he did a film previously before that, but Bates was his official kind of directorial debut, I guess, and that film was just really interesting to me. And I thought, like, this guy has got something here. I didn't see his last film, Ennis Men, but Rosa Nevada, I absolutely loved. Bait was great, but this was like more my kind of thing. I had a kind of science fiction bent to it. Not a full-blown sci-fi film. It was still about Cornwall and fishermen, but it had this kind of sci-fi twist to it, and it was kind of about time travel in a way. But the great thing about it was that it wasn't just shoehorning kind of a sci-fi element in there for the sake of it. It really worked in terms of what the message of the film was about. Like, thematically, there was a reason for the kind of time travel element, and it really kind of works in helping to paint the allegory of what the film was trying to say about these fishermen in Cornwall almost being like stuck in a time loop where they're kind of passing it down to their kind of relatives, and it's almost like a loop of just the same thing going on. And I just felt like it really worked. It was just like a really kind of like special film for me. It's not often you get to see films like this shot on 16mm film. The sound, I believe, was all done in post, so it has kind of a really kind of unique kind of sound and feel to it. George Mackay and Callum Turner were both great in the lead roles. It was really watching this film where I felt like Callum Turner, I felt like would make a great Bond. Obviously, this is not an action movie, nothing like a Bond movie, but I don't know, I feel like he probably would be my pick for Bond, because he's just got this kind of like presence to him. The same was George Mackay as well. Him in particular, kind of a really kind of unique kind of look, like it really works on screen. And yeah, maybe this won't be for everyone. I don't really know how it's going to be received, but Rosa Nevada, I thought, was just a really great, really kind of unique little film, kind of really surreal and abstract and kind of dreamlike, and I just found myself really falling in love with this film. So there we go, that wraps up my top 5 best films of 2026 so far. Still a lot of films I need to catch up on. I'm going to try and do a better job as far as the second half of the year is concerned with trying to catch up on a lot of the films I've missed and seeing all the other films that have yet to come out. The latter half of the year looks like it's going to be really great. A lot of obviously big new releases coming out with like the likes of Spider-Man and Odyssey and the Avengers in June, as well as I'm sure lots of really great smaller indie films coming out on the awards circuit. So yeah, that wraps up my best films of 2026 so far. What does your list look like? What were your top 5 favourite films of the year so far? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. But until then, I'll see you next time.